Hey everybody, I hope you guys can hear me. I am in an outdoor cafe near the park in San Diego, Balboa Park, one of the best parks in the country. And I wanted to make sure that I made good on my promise to give you a video a day about the Lace on Race guidelines. And I'm losing light, so I wanted to make sure that I did it here. The third bullet point in the Lace on Race guidelines, which I hope someone will drop below, is about the fact of being able to reach as many people possible as we can, the suppression that we get from Facebook and the penetration that we get from Facebook. We spoke a little bit about this yesterday, and the fact is real, period. Take a drink. I just said period. Facebook actively suppresses us, just like they actively suppress pretty much every Black thinker and commentator and writer on Facebook, particularly Black women. And that is a real thing. One reason that we run the Ask, which I will be running today because it is the first of the month and it is part of my praxis to ask, and I have a team of people who will ask me if I did the Ask. One of the reasons we run things more than once and on different platforms, laceonrace.com, facebook.com on the page, and nowadays on Instagram, is because we know that our reach is limited. I think some of you who have been here a while already know this, but for the first 6 months of Lace on Race, I was fighting for every post because race is in the title. Facebook assumed that I was a white supremacist. And I had to fight every single time. Just because race is in the name does not mean that I'm a bad actor. They sort of back down, but what has never been able to do is to get the reach we want. One reason that we insist upon considered responses and comments instead of likes and hearts and emojis is because of that reach. Facebook's algorithms are tougher than you think. Everyone thinks they can sort of get around them, but you really can't. One way to do it in a very legitimate way is to make sure that there are comments. Comments means engagement, and in fact, that is what bumps us up. Not to mention the idea that when we do this, comment and respond, Facebook gets the idea that we really are a community, not just a place where I'm just flapping my jaws and people are silent. That's a different vibe, and the algorithm catches that. Now that we've talked about this, I want to talk about something else. I have been saying this in videos and in essays for a few months now, but I think it's quite true. Wow, I am losing light fast in San Diego. It was pretty sunny not even 5 minutes ago, so I'm going to make this fast. One of the things that is actually true about this community is that you guys need to learn to amplify and share. In a given post, even posts where we get a lot of responses here, very few people share. They don't share Rada, they don't share Laura, they don't share me, they don't share Meleza, they don't share the memes and the articles. And when they do, usually they leave my commentary out. I'm going to ask you very specifically to really consider why that is. I have said it half in jest. We are not a pornography site. You do not need to be ashamed to share what you see here and learn here. But that's exactly how we're treated by the bulk of you. And it's worth consideration and deep confronting. It's worth interrogating why that is. This goes hand in hand with outing yourself as an active and committed anti-racist person. What is it about the message that is being presented to you here, about the ethos and the method that is being presented to you here, that makes you reluctant to share and pan out after that and ask yourself about that globalized reluctance and how it's contributed to the time that we have now? white people being afraid to talk about these things, afraid of positioning themselves on the side of the right for whatever reason, social and economic capital, wanting to keep the peace, all of these things we've been talking about a lot in recent weeks actually, serves to buttress the status quo. And the status quo is racism and white supremacy. So let's have that conversation. Why aren't we shared? We can ask that of not just lurkers, although certainly lurkers. Why are lurkers lurkers? 90% of you are lurkers. I'm always rejoicing when I see a new face. But it's worth asking. And for those of you who do engage on the boards and on laceonrace.com, again, why aren't you sharing? Why aren't you pressing that Facebook button or Twitter button or Instagram button? Why aren't you talking about more of what we're talking about? Even if you disagree with me, why aren't you starting conversations? It is exactly the lack of these conversations that has brought us to where we are in this present moment, the day before the election in 2020. I want to talk about this more, but I want you to read the guidelines and comment. Again, this is a required video. For those of you who are sustainers in training and or want to be part of Chef's Table when we launch Lace on Race Cafe, it is absolutely required that you look at and internalize and affirm each and every one of these videos I am going to be making for the next 20 days. It's required because this is something I don't want to have to keep on doing. I want to be able to do a one and done, and I want to be able to hit the ground running when we go to Chef's Table. Let's talk about later on today. I will be doing an ask, and I realize that we're going into the holiday season and that financial engagement goes down during those times. In fact, it was exactly this time a year ago in November and December when we were seriously considering closing our doors. It is so important for everyone to, if you find this space engaging and informative and you want it to stick around, that you engage. I hesitate to bring up the fact that this is my only vocation now. And it is both galvanizing. I want to give you the best content possible. I want to bring to you the best community possible. But it is done with a little bit of trepidation and a little bit of fear in the back of my mind. Is this experiment going to work? So we know this, that the bulk of our financial engagement comes within 1 week to 10 days of the initial ask at the top of the month. The rest is dribs and drabs. So I'm hoping that sustainers and people who pay a la carte and potential sustainers, if you can and are willing to and have the spoons, that you engage with us financially sooner rather than later. It allows me and my team to be able to project and extrapolate for the months ahead so that we can know what to expect. And it gives, frankly, a little bit of affirmation to me that I am not going to be having, are we going to make it, in the back of my head as I engage with you, as I write, as I do videos. If there's any questions you have about Facebook suppression, if there's any doubts that you have about Facebook suppression, put it down here. I want to make sure that everybody sees this. Again, this is a required viewing. Staff and or leadership team, can you put that at the top of the video? And can you also drop the guidelines? I love you all. It is about time I go to the truck because I am all in shadow. Tomorrow, I will be live blogging the election. From the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. And even if it's called early, which in the national election it very well could be, I'm still going to be blogging analysis. I want to say this though, and I'll say it again over and over again. I'll say it tomorrow. I'll say it on Wednesday. Whatever the outcome, our work is not done. Racism and white supremacy are not going to be eradicated with the ascension of any given political party. Not now, not on Inauguration Day in January. This is work that is continuing. We need to not only get the house keys back to the house that is America. We need to paint the walls in the house that is America. We need to completely refashion, and we need to plant orange trees in the orchard that is the United States, and each of us is an orange tree. By the way, I looked over at the orange tree and there are these little tiny, almost they look like mandarins, but they're turning orange, and I cannot wait to make orangeade and then do all the zesting and make orange pound cake. Y'all are a beautiful orchard. I love you, and before it gets too dark to see my schnoz, I'm gonna let you go. Remember, we are suppressed. It is your job as part of your practice to amplify and to share both the ethos and the method, as well as Lace on Race itself. Good night.